All right. So first of all, forgive me because I did something to my eye. I think I tried to put my contact in. I scratched it or something. So uh, I didn't get beat up or anything. It just looks like I did. Okay. So the European theater, really, this is about North Africa first. Remember, Italy invaded Ethiopia, and then the Axis powers took over the rest of Northern Africa. So we had to eradicate the Nazis from North Africa before we could continue into Europe. Actually, that's the path we chose. We could have invaded Europe first. We did not, much to the chagrin of the Soviet Union and the Russians, but we'll talk about that later. Okay, so everything covered in red here, okay, is the everything in red is controlled by the Nazis. So I'm going to use this pen, at least I hope so. So you'll probably remember the RASC, right? So there's the R, there's the A, right? The Sudetenland was here. That's the S. The rest of the Czechoslovakia is here. That's the C. And then remember, Poland was split in half, okay, between the Nazis and the Russians. But then, in a shocking development, Hitler broke his promise and invaded the rest. Or invaded Russia because they needed more Lebensraum, if you remember that baloney that he offered. So the Nazis also invaded France, which you guys know from working on your map, and they took that over lickety split. Okay, and then Dunkirk is like right there, and the British and the French troops had to evacuate Dunkirk. So that's why, and they had to go to Great Britain. So later, okay, well, from here until June 6th of 1944, Europe is going to be occupied by the Nazis. So if you lived in France, you were occupied by Nazi troops. So, okay, now I had this problem last time. I don't know how to get out of here. All right, so that gets us back to recording here. So go to the next one. Oh, and it still has all that on it. So I'll go erase that because that's annoying, but I'm going to pause that first. All right, so you'll see these up here, right? You got the arrows, right? The blue is represented by the United States. The yellow is represented by the British, okay? And the British are going to attack going that way. El Alamein is the battle that happens over here. We're going to land at a thing called Operation Torch right up here, okay? And then we're going to all push towards number 4. That's Tunisia. Okay. All right. So you see that push there? Oh, I got to go back to the pen. There we go. Oh, what is that? It's repulsive. That's not me. Okay. But that is somebody with a massive zit or some kind of growth on their forehead. So you have to picture those arrows there before. Okay. And North Africa is going to end up looking like that. What? That seems really weird. I'll explain. What the heck is this? It's Mr. Brown, our assistant principal, who looks just like Dwight Eisenhower. Okay, well, what's really ironic is that Mr. Brown's wife, Mrs. Brown, who works at the school, her maiden name was Eisenhower, right? And she married somebody that looks like the same last name. That's Dwight Eisenhower. He's the leader of the American troops, the Allied troops in North Africa, and then he will be the leader for D-Day as well. So if you see Mr. Brown around in the hallway today, say hello to Mr. Eisenhower and see what he says. He loves it when somebody says that to him. This is General Patton, who's one of our leaders, and you'll see him in your notes. This, by the way, if you have the yellow note packet, you're going to want to use the yellow note packet to do this because all the notes will be in there. Okay, this is the Desert Fox. Okay, this is the German leader. His name's Erwin Rommel, and Hitler loved him in the beginning and had great faith in how amazing he was. But he is not going to be able to stop the British and the combined British and American forces in North Africa. Okay, so the Battle of the Atlantic is those wolf packs. All right, so the wolf packs was a nickname given to the German subs that attacked Allied ships. The Germans were attempting to isolate Great Britain. And it's important to remember this, right? So during the Battle of Britain is when the Nazis tried to invade Great Britain. They tried to bomb them into submission, right? Well, Churchill, our little drunken friend, wouldn't let that happen, right? He said, "We shall never surrender." So they could never really take over Great Britain. They destroyed it, but the Royal Air Force was able to hold off the Luftwaffe. Luftwaffe is the German Air Force. They were able to hold them off the best they could, right? The Luftwaffe still pretty much mercilessly attacked England, but it became clear that like England wasn't going to quit. So it was kind of like, how much can you bomb them, right? So the Germans actually attacked off of the coast of the United States. These wolf packs in the Battle of the Atlantic, like they were everywhere, right? They were everywhere. By the way, on your note packet, I think on this one, it might have been on the previous one, it says the Atlantic Charter. The Atlantic Charter was an agreement between the United States and Great Britain that we would accept no land as a result of the war. So if we win the war, we're not taking France, right? Or we're not taking Germany. Like that was the agreement that we came to, right? So that's a big one if you don't have that one on there already. Okay, so Operation Torch, right? There's a video here, but you guys are going to have an Ed puzzle on this. Really what Operation Torch is, with the blue arrows that you saw earlier, they're going into North Africa. This is the British and Allied troops both, the British and American troops both, attacking into a place like Morocco. And there was really nobody there to stop us, but we just established a beachhead there and then drove towards Tunisia. So as the Americans were coming one way, okay, the British were coming the other way, okay, through North Africa. So you see this here where we landed in Operation Torch. You can see some in Morocco and some in Algeria as well. Okay, the El Alamein, which is on the other side, it was on your map assignment. It's located in Egypt. There's a British general. His name was Bernard Montgomery. He defeated General Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox, and the Germans retreated to the west. Okay, so the Germans are going, let's do it this way. They're going west to east, right? They're getting pushed, okay, to the west, from the east to the west, from Egypt towards Tunisia, towards that number 4 on the map. And then the Americans are coming in from the other way. So they're, right? They're going to try to smash. They're going to try to, right? The people in Tunisia, right? They're going to get the Nazis out of there and push them out. Okay. So General Dwight D. Eisenhower, okay, he was our leader, the U.S. general. He lands in Casablanca, Morocco, which is a city of Morocco. He begins forcing the Axis powers east. So again, the Axis are getting pushed one way and then the other way. Okay, so they're going to get to the middle of it, right? It's going to be like a big zit, like right on your forehead, like that terrible, nasty picture earlier, right? And then, right, just like the nasty comes out of a zit, the British and the Americans are going to force the Nazis, that nasty, right out of the zit, okay? And then go right across the Mediterranean Sea into Sicily, okay, which is where we'll go next. Okay, so that's pretty gross, huh? I know. Montgomery and Eisenhower's troops surround the Germans in Tunisia in May of 1943. 240,000 German soldiers surrender under the Desert Fox. Of course, Erwin Rommel, he makes his way out. He gets out of there, okay, of Tunisia, and he ends up back in Europe. And he, in France, okay, is going to be in charge of establishing a fortress, basically, the Atlantic Wall, to prevent the Americans and the Allies from invading France, because now the Nazis have control of France. They were red earlier on that map. And so for the next year, okay, between May of 1943 and June of 1944, he's building up this huge wall, and they're going to build concrete bunkers. They're going to take telephone poles and plant them in the ground. They call that Rommel's asparagus, right? So that airplanes can't land. Like, they're doing all kinds of dirty tricks, right? But that's where Rommel's going to go after he gets pinched out of Tunisia. Okay, so there it is, right? So Rommel was in like 6. That's where El Alamein is. That's Egypt. And then they get pushed over towards Tunisia. That's number 4. The Americans and some British land in Morocco and in parts of Algeria. That's number 2 and 3. And then they push from the other direction. And then, like I said, like a big nasty zit, like the picture I showed you earlier, they get pushed into that little island up there, okay, in Italy. Okay, the island is called Sicily. So they're going to get pushed this way, across, right, into that island. Okay. All right. So they have a second conference here. Okay. This conference is called the Casablanca Conference, which is in Morocco. So they have the Atlantic Charter, and then they have the Casablanca Conference. At this one, and this is major for what's going to happen later in the war, FDR and Churchill have a meeting in Casablanca, and this results in the Allies coming up with this rule: they will accept nothing but an unconditional surrender from both Germany and Japan. Okay, so they're not too worried about Italy because I think that they can get that taken care of. But really, by this point, the Nazis have kind of taken control of what's happening in Italy. So Germany and Japan will have to have an unconditional surrender. So this is not it's not going to be a surrender where you can say, well, we're going to leave Hitler in power, or we're going to leave Hirohito in power in Japan. Nope, can't do that. It's one or the other. Okay, either they stay in or the war continues. And then if you want the war to end, they have to be gone. Okay, there's no conditions. It has to be unconditional surrender. All right, so then in Italy, right? That's why I said I got forced across the Mediterranean Sea into that little boot. I had the arrow up there earlier. General George S. Patton invades the island of Sicily. It takes 38 days to get that little bitty place, which is like hardly the size of Rhode Island. Okay, it's the part of Italy that's getting kicked by the boot. Okay, Mussolini is overthrown. Okay, and Italy surrenders. Mussolini is not captured yet, though. The Germans are still fighting the Allies in Italy. What this is going to do eventually is leave Benito Mussolini. Well, we're going to turn Italy upside down, and we're definitely going to turn Benito Mussolini upside down. Actually, the people of Italy are going to turn Benito Mussolini upside down. Okay, so there's Sicily down there at the bottom. Okay, and then you can see how Italy kind of looks like a boot, and then Sicily's the part getting kicked by the boot. Okay. All right. So there's Rome, the Vatican City. There's Austria up there. Okay. Switzerland, all right, which is neutral. Okay. So the rest of the war in Italy, the Allies invade behind enemy lines. Okay. So right down here, okay, is where Anzio is. And boy, that was a nasty place. And again, this is one of those things that gets lost in World War II history. American parachuters, they literally jump behind enemy lines. And the fighting was crazy intense. There were 72,000 killed or wounded by April of 1944. It took our guys months to literally go a few miles. The overall deaths for Americans by the end of the war in Italy was close to 200,000. Over 500,000 Germans died there. And it was nasty fighting in the hills, the big mountains in Italy. It was really, really a bad, bad scene. But we did eventually force out the Nazis out of Italy. What is this? Well, I'm going to tell you what this is. If I go here and I'm going to circle this guy, you'll never guess who that is. Yeah, that's Benito Mussolini. And the people of Italy overthrew him. And this is in like 1945. They finally captured him and they hung him upside down. This was like an old gas station. Like a petroleum station, and they hung him from the rafters of the station. And the American troops discovered this. It looks like the American troops did this, but did not. Okay, we did not do this. Crazy, right? So this is what happens, though, during war, and happens to dictators like Benito Mussolini. I don't think he was too fired about fascism at this point. All right, so that might be the end of this. Okay, so that is the end of this. I'm going to go back a little bit to this nasty picture of this, right? Because Tunisia, number 4 up there, was like that zit, okay? And that big, nasty red, whatever that is on that guy's head, is like the Nazis in North Africa, and they had to get pushed out, okay? And they did eventually into Italy, and then we had to get rid of them and get them out of Italy as well. Okay, but all the meanwhile, when we get to the Battle of Stalingrad, just remember, Stalingrad's going on while this is going on in North Africa. It's crazy. All right. The end.